Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and today I am joined by my longtime friend and acquaintance in the industry, Justin Stewart with Corteva. Justin, thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey, absolutely, Mark. I appreciate it. It's been a long time, but I'm looking forward to this. It's pretty exciting times.
Yeah, man, I'm glad that we got you on here. When I was creating the show, I was like, I'm gonna have Justin Stewart on the Intentional Ag Leader podcast, and here I am 2 years into it. finally reached out, got you on the show. Glad to have you in. First question that everybody gets: what does it mean for you, Justin, to be intentional?
Yeah, I love this question, and just listening to some of the other podcasts, it's been really cool to hear some of the folks and how they've responded. And honestly, the way I phrase it up and kind of as I thought through this more, it really came down to intentional is really that alignment between strategy and tactics. When I start to think about one or the other, and I'm more of a strategic guy, honestly. And so I like the big picture. I like to think about next steps, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen and counter that, right?
Yeah,
But sometimes if you don't have the tactics to support it, the strategy, right, it's more just trying to get lucky, I guess, if you will. But you got to have both. You got to have intentionality on both of them. You got to have deliberately go in and make sure you've got that overarching strategy, but then have the tactics to support. And I think it really starts with the understanding and information gathering, right? You're truly listening to your people and put that together, and that's usually what drives that intentionality, if that makes sense.
beautiful. Good stuff, dude. I like it a lot. It's strategy. I'm better on the strategy than the tactics sometimes.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm like I said, I'm the same way. Sometimes I have to be a little bit more intentional with the tactics than I do the strategy.
Right, right. Yeah, there's more deliberateness, I think, that's required for guys like you and me on that. Although I love to surround myself with people that really enjoy the tactics,
Yes,
because like
yes,
you got from a leadership perspective, I think you got to have your head in the clouds a little bit, but you got to have your feet in the dirt at the same time,
100%.
and then you got to have people that love one and one or the other to kind of balance it out. So good
Absolutely.
stuff, man. So talk to me a little bit about. I mean, you're the U.S. sales lead for turf and ornamental, right? For Corteva.
Correct. Yep.
Good. Give us a background, fill us in, let the listeners know, who you are, what you're about.
Yeah, sure. So it's been kind of an interesting path, interesting journey. I know last time we worked together, it was when I was on the crop side and based out of Fargo, North Dakota. So a little bit out of body for me, being from Indiana originally. But I grew up in Indiana, spent most of my life here. Ended up working at a golf course from a very early age, and so I kind of fell in love with golf, fell in love with working on the course. Started out as a cart boy, moved up to assistant superintendent over a couple of years, and then ended up being superintendent there for a little bit before going to Purdue and actually doing my degrees in turf management. Once I got through Purdue, signed on with Dow Agrisciences at the time, and they put me into a territory. Worked that territory for a little bit out of the Mid South in Nashville, Tennessee, and loved every minute of that. The Mid South was fantastic.
Yeah.
Would love to retire there someday if I ever get that chance. So we'll see. But spent some time on our urban pest business, working with bed bugs, termites, fumigation, things like that. Then went into small grains, and then that's when you and I kind of met up and
Sure. Yep.
did a few projects there. And then came back in, ran our nitrogen stabilizer business out of Indianapolis at headquarters for a few years, along with our plant health fungicides for the U.S. And then was lucky enough to kind of get back into turf and ornamental. And really, that's where I've been ever since 2019. So I've been doing this for the last 6 years and got a great team of 12 folks and coach soccer on the side. My boys play high level academy and they love playing, and I love coaching them. And it's been a great ride these last several years.
Super
Yeah.
cool. What would you say? So if a lot of our listeners are probably more familiar with the row crop side or your small grains experience and less on the turf and ornamental. So what would be two or three differences that you would summarize? I mean, it's obviously a very different market, a lot of different
Yeah.
things going on there. But yeah, yeah, give
Yeah,
us
for
some
sure.
insight. Yeah.
For sure. Well, I mean, they shouldn't feel bad, first of all, because even folks within Corteva don't even realize we have a turf and ornamental business. So it's kind of if they're on the seed side and the crop protection side, they're shocked when they find out we actually do things with golf courses, lawn care, and nurseries, right? So
Yeah.
So it's pretty common response that I get throughout, even our own company.
Yep.
The biggest difference, I mean, a lot of it's very similar. I mean, when you look at how we go to market and everything else, it's very similar to what you see on the crop protection side. I think the biggest difference is we're not growing for yield, right? Our yield is completely different, right? So we don't talk bushels to the acre or anything like that. We're not, unless you're in the seed, unless you're actually growing seed on the turf side, you really don't have to worry too much about that. Ours is, it's really about perennial systems. It's about playability. It's about aesthetics. It's about safety. And as you think about what the world is trying to get more of, it's that green space, right? And we see a lot of the urban sprawl, if you will. You see a lot of the concrete, jungles, if you will. So
Yeah.
we're trying to preserve a lot of the things that folks are desiring: parks, recreation, sports fields, golf courses, lawn care, right? So we support those. The main three are really that nursery and greenhouse, golf, and then lawn care are the three big ones that we predominantly deal with. But so it's just really supporting them, the end users, through distribution. And so again, a lot of similarities, but definitely major differences there. We're not just trying to grow one crop a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a big difference. I need to put you in touch with whoever runs the golf course that I live on. Actually, we have the eighth tee in our backyard.
Nice.
When we moved to North Carolina in 2022, actually a year ago right now, we were in the process, or excuse me, 3 years ago right now, we were in the process of doing it, and we could not. I mean, the housing market was so hot in that
Oh
time
yeah.
frame, and I was part of my terms for moving to North Carolina was that I got to live in the country. I'd been lived in Omaha for the last decade before that, and I was just I'm done living in the city. I want to get out of town, right? And we looked for an acreage, but everything was going off the market within 24 hours, sight unseen, no
Sure.
inspections. I mean, 5 acre, 10 acre, 50. It didn't matter how big it was. It was just you couldn't, and it was all like almost unaffordable, right? I remember one place we offered on was like 2.5 acres, and I think we offered 75,000 over asking, and we still got beat out.
So, yeah.
Uh,
There's a
yeah,
lot of pockets, man. I'll tell you, and depending on where you're at, and even today, I mean, see
yeah,
the housing market's not as well. It's good, but it's not. There's just not a lot of open for buying, right? And
right.
people just aren't
Yeah,
moving.
it's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So anyway, suffice to say, I could not find the acreage, but we did find a golf course. So I have the eighth tee and no backyard neighbors, right? So my neighbors are whoever's teeing off. My backyard neighbors is whoever's teeing off every 4 or 5 minutes, and there's a new group to look at. But it's a nice course. It's a beautiful course. We don't, it's North Carolina, so of course it's a tight course, lots of trees, all those good things. But yeah, the turf needs some help.
Yeah,
We just
it's
need some course management up here at the Chapel Ridge Golf Club.
nice, very nice. Yeah, it's well, hey, we can help with that for sure. I got a great rep down there that's fantastic in the Carolinas and could definitely help with that.
Perfect. I got a lead. I'll tell you. I'll point you in the right direction. All right. So you've got a team of 12. And you're within a larger organization, probably operating just I would assume a little bit separate from a lot of the rest of the organization because of the nature of turf and ornamental. But what does it look like to develop the culture that you're building within your team? You've had this team now for 6 years or so it's the culture is whatever you've decided it to be at this point. I'm curious what that evolution has looked like and how you've implemented culture within your team over the years.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because we've gone from Dow, right? So Dow and DuPont merged to form
Yeah.
Corteva, and so you have those different cultures, and then within those different cultures, you had the seed side and crop protection, you had the specialty businesses, and everything else. So each one has its own kind of microculture, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been interesting to see kind of the shift. And, while there's a lot of similarities between the culture of the big, the mothership, if you will,
Yeah.
and, our T&O business, that smaller business within, there's certain key characteristics that we've held on to quite a bit. And some of it's just due to the nature of our business and how we go to
Mm.
but overall, I mean, I guess when you look at a culture standpoint, building that out has been kind of fascinating, and some of it's just like I always tell my soccer kids, right, that when we're coaching, it's like simple pass, simple pass. It's the simple stuff, right? Let's do the simple things, and so sometimes it's a lot of those simple things that add up to create that culture, if you will, versus that one big play or that one big thing that you do to try to make culture happen, right? And so It's just consistency on the simple things that really help develop that culture. And it also allows you to kind of adjust too, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
interesting. You know, if you're doing the simple things and you're continuing to do them, you can adjust kind of micro.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps as well. But building it out, I mean, it really starts at the base. When I hire, very deliberate, very intentional in terms of how we hire. Um, I'll give you a couple examples. I'm always involved in the hiring process. I also include my team. So the folks that are leaders within the group will oftentimes help with the interviewing. And I want their input. I want their feedback. I want to know, what their thoughts are on the candidates. But we also work with, I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but Sherry Spencer Bachman, she does more on the pest side, so more on the termite and, PCO side, if you will, but she does a Colby assessment. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, Colby's been great. We've done some right fitting of the roles, and we've actually put, every time we have, get down to the final three, we'll usually put them through the Colby assessment and see how they fit within the role.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really been significant for us because it's helped us understand kind of how they operate and how they think and how that will fit within the role that we want to hire for.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in really going through identifying the key characteristics that we want for that role and then really hiring to that role. And so that's really been successful for us. We've had good retention. We've had folks excited about their role, and we've had great success over the last 6 years.
That's cool. What does the Colby assessment give you once you get down to those final candidates that helps you make your decision?
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, it gives us kind of a score in terms of how the person fits within the role, and it's not like a scale of 10. It's not like if they get a 9 or a 7, right? One's better than the other. It's really about, it just tells us how they work. Are they, how do they make decisions?
Yeah.
How do they prioritize? How do they go out and actually tackle the job, right? And so there's some key characteristics that we look for within that, right? So things like, do they have grit? Are they going to, roll up their sleeves and get the job done? And one of the coolest things is when you see a brand new territory manager take over a role and they're out there moving tables at a event or trade show, right? And they're clearing tables for the customers, and they're throwing stuff away. I mean, just stuff like that like just simple things, right? But they have that work ethic, they have that grit that they just want to roll up their sleeves, service the customer well, which is a huge deal. And so, characteristics like that are huge. We really hire around three different pillars. So when I think about, as I develop and as we hire, I want folks that have a long runway and that can develop and learn, have a history of learning, but
Mm-hmm.
specifically around business acumen, sales acumen, and agronomic acumen. So if those
Mm-hmm.
three things, like, we can teach them all three, but if they can show a propensity to learn and have a long runway from that aspect, then
Yeah.
I mean, that's the person you want, because you want to try to get a balance within those three things. Some are going to be more than on certain ones than others, but if you can get a balance and develop to that, we found that to be very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's cool. And so do you have like specific learning, like a learning journey or learning pathways for those people once they come on board that address those, you said sales, business, and
Yep.
agronomic acumen, right?
Yep.
So I'm assuming the expectation is that I have to now add on to what I already know,
Yeah, for
in those
sure. Yeah, I
categories,
mean,
right?
there's definitely a journey. I mean, when we first get them on board, we typically put them through. I love that Gil Del Rosario has been a fantastic resource for us. He's our national account leader, but he was our market development specialist, and he was responsible for doing a lot of the training and onboarding and stuff like that. And he put together some great stuff where he'd have them come out and do the Gil boot camp, if you will, and do some agronomic training right off the bat, right? So a week long with Gil, and you're weed walking and you're doing all kinds of stuff where you're just kind of reading labels, you're going through them, you're being tested and all that stuff. So really kind of an indoctrination into the agronomic piece. So from the very start, they're working on agronomics. I mean, that's what they're learning. They're learning the labels, they're learning the rates, the products, all that stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's critical. We get them on board first with that. And then typically we'll move over to have them spend some time with myself, learning more about the business side of it, what we're doing, what the expectations are. And then it's really writing. To learn the sales piece, it's really writing with experienced professionals. I've got a great team. I've got several that have been with the company for a couple decades, few decades really. And so they'll spend time riding with them, calling on customers, seeing how they do it, learning from them. I think that's just been a very positive way to really quickly get somebody up to speed on what the role is and the expectations within the sales side of it. And then you have all the other stuff that corporate does, right? They do all the
Yeah,
other
of course.
trainings and things like that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It was. That's it's fascinating. One thing I'm always looking for within our clients is, what does that development journey look like from
For sure.
hire to get them to wherever you want to be. The unfortunate reality is most organizations can't actually define for me what that is, which is great for business
Yeah, for
on
sure.
our
Yeah.
side, right? Because we can help them define it. But it's there's a difference between intentional people development and unintentional, people development, employee development. And it's one of those things that often gets overlooked because I think most leaders just were never trained on how to do that,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Which leaves the door open for us for a business opportunity, but it's not one of those things that most leaders are trained on the sales acumen, the agronomic acumen, and the acumen, and the business acumen, right? Those are the three main categories for most. And then how to develop people isn't often one of those. Like, where does that fit into? Sort of fits into business acumen, but it's not really a well-trained skill set. So that's something that we try to solve for, obviously, within our business for our clients, but can be a challenge.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, and I'm guessing you probably run into some folks that they probably do a good job when that person's in the role, but as soon as they leave that role, there's no processes or documentation or anything in terms of how it's done, right? And then that's where it all gets kind of chaotic.
Yep. Yeah, we've actually started creating now for clients something called a strategic learning design. And so it goes first from a macro perspective and then down to the role level. And so we can take the team and we can put together, here's a 3-year learning design, which includes all the potential pathways, whether it's the big
Oh, yeah.
pathways like you talked about, or even going to like to the next level down to like what goes into the sales, the sales capabilities, the agronomic capabilities, the business acumen capabilities, and so forth. And then use that to sort of put together like a 3-year, 20,000 foot plan on like what you should need, what the budget looks like, for those kind of things, where to get those resources. And in some cases, like how to save money. Like, let's say somebody needs negotiations training. Okay, because they're getting beat up on margin all the time or something like that, right? Most companies or most people will make the mistake of going to the community college and hiring and taking a negotiations course from somebody who's never negotiated anything, or pay a lot of money to have somebody come in for 2 days and do negotiations training and then hope that they pick it up. All can work. I mean, people can certainly pick things up, but the best negotiations course is $134 and it's online and you can do it in an afternoon. You can do it on your next flight, so to speak. So, write to me and I can hook you up with what that is. We'll use that as a lead generation thing.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, I'd love to look into it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, the question is like, how do we know even that negotiation is, first of all, like something that people need to focus on. Second of all, like what's the best way to get that training? And that's I think where the disconnect is, and that's the gap that we're trying to fill for a lot of our clients. But anyway, my point is we're doing that with a strategic learning design, and then we go to the next level for the individual, and we create a capabilities matrix that actually shows what are the capabilities, at what level are they currently in each of those capabilities, and then what does it look like to go from intermediate to mastery, as an
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
right? And getting really specific with this, because I think with the where we're going from where the generation that you and I have kind of come up in, you're supposed to sort of figure out learning and development on your own for the most part, other than like what corporate provides for you that you have to go to. The rest is sort of on your own, right? Your next generation is not going to settle for that, and they're going to want to know exactly like what is the developmental pathway, right? But it's also a huge advantage because if you're in one of these organizations that's a little flatter, and you're going to have that person who really wants to advance, like they want to go to the next level, but there's nowhere to go, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Justin,
We're running that same issue right now, right? So,
yeah,
yeah.
and like the top guy on the team is only 43 years old, and he's not going anywhere for perceivably for some time unless he gets promoted laterally or gets promoted upwards, right? And so where do you go? So we can, with those development pathways, we can actually show somebody like how to advance their rank without actually doing the promotion. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
here's how to
absolutely.
prepare yourself for what's coming. Here's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, so that they know what to keep doing. But I think a lot of people get stuck, they get stagnant, and they get dissatisfied because they don't know what to do next because there is nowhere to go. So I'm not learning a new job, right? So we just the mission I've been on lately is how can we just help them advance through their job and become better, better, better.
I love that because I mean, we've done a lot of something similar to that, right? We've tried to institute some small teams, just different ways to get people engaged, right? And so I actually have a tiger team that basically operates within the sales team, and the two leaders are responsible for their regions and their reps. So they're not really directly, they don't have direct reports, but they definitely have folks that they're accountable for and different territories. And so it gives them, and then there's multiple teams, right? But it gives them an opportunity to get more involved, more engaged. And it's really been awesome to see some of these folks, brand new to the company, stepping up into leadership roles. And it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, very cool. All right, total left field question here and pivoting to the next thing. But so if in the T&O business and turf and ornamental, if I want to sell to a golf course, does this go through distribution? Do we work directly with golf course ownership? And what is that?
Yeah. So good question. Yeah, so we work, everything we do is through distribution in terms of the route to market, right? So we have a great partnership with distribution. We do a lot of stuff with formulators as well when you start to talk about the do-it-yourself type stuff. So through Home Depot, Lowe's, and all that stuff, as well as some of our products on technical fertilizer material, right?
Yeah.
But it's all through distribution from that aspect. Most of our time is spent with distribution. We do obviously have contacts, and we do have support for our end user customers as well. And so as you think about some of these larger guys, large golf courses, large LCOs, large nursery growers, we do have some folks that or some interactions and some accountability to that as well. But as far as sales, everything goes through distribution, which has been great, because honestly, distribution has done a great job in the turf and ornamental industry. It's such a small industry when you look at it versus ag. Sure. And while a lot of the players are similar or the same, like you have the national guys that are in both, but the folks that are specifically in T&O and distribution wise have been fantastic. I mean, they're longtime folks in the industry, very, very passionate about the industry, and it's been great partnering with them over the years.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Thank you for answering that. That was just kind of my pet questions. Like, how do they, what's the actual sales process look like? Right. Because, different companies have to do it differently. And my assumption was there's some sort of distribution model, because nobody is, I can't imagine from a sales perspective is knocking on every single golf course door,
Well, I mean, to give you an idea, I mean, every one of my reps has about 200 contacts from a distributor standpoint, but they've got 3,600 different contacts on average across all my territories when it comes to end users. So it's like, it'd be impossible without distribution. It'd be absolutely impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, good stuff, man. All right, let's do you want to talk a little bit about talent? We've talked a lot about culture building and what you do from kind of bringing people, finding people, bringing them on board, but just like in general, talent attraction, retention from your space, you're with a larger company serving kind of a unique niche, within this ag space. Like how do you find people that want to be in your?
Yeah. So I guess I'll take it more on the side of the retention side of it. But I mean, as far as finding it, it's been interesting. So there's a lot of folks that do want to get into turf and ornamental. It's been kind of surprising. Honestly, when I open a roll up, I tend to see a lot of folks, even from the seed side, that want to get into turf and ornamental, and they've heard the culture's good. They really like what they've heard about it. It's interesting to them. It's something different, challenging, right? So it's been fun to watch some of the folks coming over from areas that have never even thought about turf and ornamental before. But then but again, it starts with the hiring, right? So you hire the right people, you hire with the characteristics, whether they have a turf background or not. Honestly, I don't even look much anymore whether they have a turf background. I look for other characteristics, right? Things you can't coach.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been the big factor. But then, we talked about the small teams, getting them engaged, right? Those are all things from a retention standpoint and finding it, if you will. But, there's, I guess the only thing I would say other than that would be, once we get them on board, it's really just about, again, engagement, listening, building that trust. And the other side of this is networking. Mm-hmm. They have to, 12 territories you can imagine across the US, that's a lot of space in between, and they don't get a lot of time to get together on a regular basis. So it can be very isolating. So finding somebody who's okay with that, but can go out and network on their own and work with their other peers and their teammates and functional groups, I think is so critical in terms of just building that team.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I love it. All right. Well, let's learn a little bit more about Justin. talk to us. You've had a storied career. You're one of the rare people probably that I've had on. Really, I mean, in this day and age, one of the rare people that's been with one company for the last 18 years. Granted, the company's had some iterations, but so it's not the same company, but it really is kind of one. You haven't had to go, shopping outside that organization, for roles. So, what's been the biggest challenge that you've got to overcome in those 18 years? What's been the biggest win?
Man, I could take that from so many different directions, right?
Mhm.
Me personally, I think the biggest win for me has just been getting to experience a lot of the different roles. I've been open in my career to. I've never looked for my next role. I've always just kind of let it happen, and I just do the best I can in the role that I'm in, and then see what happens, right? So and it's worked out well. I mean, I can't say it works out for everybody, I guess, but for me, it's actually worked out really well. We've taken every opportunity we've gotten, regardless if it was, moving to Fargo. People think we're crazy because we moved to Fargo, but
Yeah.
it was an awesome experience. The team up there was fantastic. And so that was the biggest win for me, was just getting to see multiple things within my career with the same
Yeah.
company, and just being, all the different experiences, different places we've lived, different businesses, different people. Has been really, really a great thing for me personally. Biggest challenge, I think, that's such a great question. This sounds so cliche. Challenges have been fun for me. I like challenges. Complaint calls have always been fun, because they're opportunities, right? So everything's an
Sure.
opportunity. But I guess the challenge would probably be, when I got into people management, that was probably the biggest challenge, because it's no longer about you, it's about them. And so, our pastor at the local church here made a comment one time that really stuck with me. He said, there comes a point in everyone's career where you get to the mountain, the top of the mountain, or at least your top of the mountain, right? Your peak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it then becomes, how do you get others to their peak, right? And so it was really cool to hear him say that, because it started to make me think, as a people leader, okay, it's no longer about me getting to my peak. It's about, what can I
Right.
do to help my folks get to their peaks, right? So that's been kind of stuck with me over the years. And so that's been a big challenge, though, because now it becomes you know it's taking those uncomfortable phone calls after hours, and on the weekends, or it's about trying to have challenging conversations with people that may not be real comfortable, right? And so it's been a hurdle, but it's been a good.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course. It reminds me of the old Zig Ziglar quote, which is, "You get, excuse me, you can get anything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want."
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many good ones that kind of portray that, right? So yeah, it's been fun. It's been good, but that's from my personal standpoint. I mean, there's been obviously big wins as a team, and then there's been big challenges as teams go. But yeah, those are some good ones.
Absolutely. Good stuff, man. Books that you read, podcasts you listen to, anything that you'd recommend people be taking in?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're probably gonna folks are, when they hear this, bring a laugh, but I honestly find myself reading more. And it's gotten easier with ChatGPT and AI, or ChatGPT and then AI. But like, I
Yeah.
really enjoy just reading, like, scientific articles, like
Hmm.
new research is being done. Like that honestly, that's been my that's almost all I do anymore. Is basically, I'll just think of a topic or subject, and I'll go to ChatGPT, and I'll do the deep research, and I'll start to have it pull in a bunch of different things as sources, and I'll just look through
Yeah.
that. And that's been my way of kind of growing, if you will, right? But I
Love it.
think uh, from a book standpoint, I've always been a big fan of The Art of War, Sun Tzu.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
one to me is, it's funny. Even my oldest, he asked me one day, he goes, "Dad, I want to read a book that you read." And I said, "I got the perfect book for you. You're not going to
There you
understand
go.
any of it, but it's a perfect book for you." And
Yeah.
I let him start reading Art of War. And so, what was really cool is, he didn't understand half of it, but he came to me and asked. We were asking, so we'd have questions. He'd be like, "Hey, Dad, what does this mean?" Like, and we'd start having some questions and answers, like,
Nice.
sessions, right? So it was really cool. My 12-year-olds, you're reading Art of War and learning about how to prepare for battle and all this other stuff, right? And so it's been fun to watch. But that's one that just kind of sticks with me. It has so many applications across so many different areas.
It's such a good book. And it's, I remember read it years ago, but then as we went through all like these really wild upheavals politically and
Yeah,
so forth during the pandemic and everything since 2020, like you can actually see it at play,
yeah,
at a grand scale. Like this is what like inform yourself. It's worth leaning into
I
and
mean,
reading.
honestly, one of my favorite quotes, you talk about intentionality, right? And being intentional. One of my favorite parts of that whole thing when he talks about victorious warriors win before they, before they or
Yeah.
then go to war, right? And
Right.
defeated warriors tend to go to war first and seek to win. And so it's just like it's just so to me from a strategy standpoint and even into the
Yeah.
tactics piece, right? It's just such a
Big time.
cool quote, and to think that it was written. I mean, how many years ago, right? So
Yeah, a
pretty
long time
wild.
ago. Yeah, it can be a tough read, but it's worth reading through if you want to develop your ability to think like a strategic leader. I would say that, right? Because it really, I mean, like what you just said there. I mean, what we break it down in our program and we talk about leading versus lagging indicators. Okay, and most people are reacting to the lagging indicators, the stuff they can no longer change.
Yes,
It's hard to change yield in October, but right, like there are things I can do now,
for sure.
right,
Yeah.
and there are things I could have done a month ago before we got to May 20th that were as we record this, right, that would have that will impact what happens in October. Those are the leading indicators, right? Same is true as it pertains to people leading,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
So stop creating reactive dashboards and start going to war with your people and get them focused on the leading indicators. Let your dashboard be things that they can impact today that affect things down the road, as opposed to just trying to fix the things down.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love that. I mean, I think as I think about stuff as simple as call pressure, right? That you can control things that are within your controllables, right? It's uh, how that impacts. I mean, even something as simple. All the surveys we've ever done have talked about, when distribution says, "Hey, the things that we want most is just call us back, like call us back in a timely manner." Get us the answer. I mean, that's like the number one requested thing, right? From a manufacturing rep's perspective, right? And so we lead with that with our folks and say, listen, if you do nothing else, whether you know the answer or not, like make contact, go call pressure, talk to them, like call them back in timely manner. And it's amazing how that influences those lags.
It's wild. So well, so good though. So just talk a little bit about. I want to go here with you in this interview. It's the last question on your sheet that I gave you ahead of time, which is around vulnerability. Like how do you? I mean, what role does that play for you from a leadership perspective? And further than that, like how do you do it without going overboard? I think
Yeah,
that's a lot of
yeah,
people's fear on vulnerabilities. It becomes a kumbaya session and not a you know.
yeah.
But
It's
what
a
does that look like
balance.
for you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a balance. I mean, I honestly, I think if you're genuine in your approach and you're not trying to force it, I think that's the biggest thing. I think for me, I'm more of an open book, transparent person. I don't get corporate probably, I'll be honest, they probably hate me because I am more likely to be open and upfront about everything than I am about trying to play the corporate, role, right? So I think, and if you're genuine, if that's how you are, if you're genuinely concerned about your folks and you do everything, regardless, even if it's having to let someone go or do something else, like that's basically having those tough conversations, right? Even if that requires you to have to do things like that, it's still, if you do it with integrity and you basically do it with a genuine interest in your folks, I think that's where the vulnerability really shows through, and it's not overboard, right? But I think just encouraging people to be honest, both with you as a leader as well as with themselves in terms of what they really are wanting. That's the only way your team really succeeds. And through that, I think you build trust. I think that trust gets you through some challenging times. It gets you through some tough times, right? But it also maintains that accountability. If you have trust with each other and you have that vulnerability, I think the biggest thing that it gets you is your team now has accountability to each other. And we all know, I mean, anyone who's been on a sports team, right, knows that if you are accountable to the person beside you, you're going to perform a heck of a lot better than what you do if you're just out there for yourself.
Big time. Love it, man. I love it. Well, Justin, thanks for doing the show. It's been so good to have you on, get reconnected and hear the updates, learn about turf and ornamental. Any last thoughts before we head off?
No, I appreciate what you're doing. I mean, I know I'm going to take away just listening to some of your shows. I'm going to take away that I think you did one here recently on clarity versus burnout.
Yeah.
and just providing that clarity, right? I think that one was huge for me. That's probably where I'm going to take this next year, is really focusing in on more clarity, because I mean, it's so easy nowadays with so much going on, and they're busy, they got multiple tasks, they're wearing multiple hats, and man, that burnout is so real. So I think it's just level setting on where, why are you doing what you're doing, right? And getting that clarity again. So that was good. I'd encourage folks to listen to that one too, because that was a good one for me.
Yeah, it's a really important topic because most people we tend to let people off the hook when they say, "Oh, I'm just not feeling motivated right now." Right? Because
Yep.
but let's be honest, like if I want to get motivated, like I can get up and go listen to some inspirational music, and that will get me motivated for a moment. I can go watch an inspirational movie, go watch Rocky again for the
Yeah.
80th
Yeah.
time, and like that will get me jacked up for a minute, or watch Braveheart, and that inspires me to want to be free and all the stuff. But it's such, like, that stuff wears off, right? It really is the discipline of getting back to clear, like, hey, what's the, maybe that don't want to do this thing, but like, what do I need to do? My thing this morning was I'm redoing how we do proposals. Okay.
Mm.
And this is not like, this is kind of a boring thing. I'm incorporating some AI into it, but it's like, historically this process is hours upon hours. Well, we're about to get into a season of writing a lot of proposals, and I don't want to spend several hours on each one.
It's fair. Yeah. No,
Right.
that's spot on.
So the clear thing that I got to go, that I was very unmotivated to do, but I was clear about what needed to happen. I got to go sit down with this thing. So I went to the coffee shop. I sat down with a cup of coffee and I did it. Right. And guess what? Now it's done.
Sometimes that's all it takes, right? It's just
Right.
understanding why you're doing it and why it needs to
Yeah.
be done, and just get it done, knock it out.
But it's going to buy me 2 hours per proposal. And if
Mm.
I write 50 proposals the rest of the year, that bought me 100 hours.
That's yeah,
I just
that's
got
that's
2 weeks
definitely
back for
yeah,
90 minutes investment, like if you, that's a huge thing. You know what I'm saying?
for
Uh,
sure.
anyway, that is a good episode, and something I hope people will go back and pay attention to on the burnout episode here a couple weeks back. So, Justin, man, thanks for being on. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, take care, and yeah, until next time.
You bet.